You don't feel rich, but you don't feel poor either. You have a decent job. You own a home. You have 2 cars in the driveway. You take a vacation every year. Your kids have everything they need. You eat at restaurants. You have a retirement account. You probably even have a few subscriptions you barely remember signing up for. From the outside, you look completely normal. That's the problem. Because the modern middle-class lifestyle can become incredibly expensive without ever feeling extravagant. You don't need a yacht. You don't need a mansion. You don't need a luxury sports car. You can spend almost everything you earn simply trying to maintain what feels like a normal life. And the strangest part, you may not even realize how expensive your normal has become until something goes wrong. A job loss, a major repair, a medical bill, a recession, or simply one month when several unexpected expenses arrive at the same time. That's when the numbers become impossible to ignore. Because maybe the problem isn't that you're spending recklessly. Maybe you're spending exactly like everyone around you, and that's what makes the middle-class lifestyle so expensive. Meet Daniel. He's 39 years old. He has a good job and earns around $125,000 a year. His wife also works. Together, they bring home a solid household income. They own a 4-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood. They have 2 cars. They have 2 children. They take 1 major vacation every year. They eat out once or twice a week. Their kids participate in sports and other activities. They have smartphones, streaming services, internet, insurance, gym memberships, Amazon purchases, home improvement projects. Everything seems normal. Daniel doesn't think of his family as wealthy. He doesn't drive a Ferrari. He doesn't wear expensive watches. He doesn't live in a mansion. He thinks of himself as middle class, and that's exactly how millions of families see themselves. But one night, Daniel opens his banking app. He looks at the balance. Then he looks at the calendar. Payday is still 9 days away, and Daniel suddenly realizes something uncomfortable. Almost every dollar of his next paycheck already has a destination. The mortgage comes first, then the car payments, then insurance, then utilities, then groceries, then childcare, then school expenses, then subscriptions, then credit cards, then fuel, then maintenance, then the upcoming vacation. Then the house needs something repaired, and whatever remains is supposed to become savings. But somehow there's never much left. Daniel isn't spending thousands of dollars every weekend. He's not constantly buying luxury items. His financial problem is much more ordinary. He's paying for a lot of ordinary things. And ordinary things become expensive when you have enough of them. Think about what normal looks like today. A family might have a house with central heating and air conditioning, 2 cars, multiple smartphones, high-speed internet, streaming television, cloud storage, music subscriptions, food delivery, gym memberships, kids' sports, school activities, annual vacations, homeowners insurance, car insurance, life insurance, property taxes, lawn care, home maintenance, and dozens of smaller expenses that barely register individually. None of these things seem crazy. That's why they're dangerous. A $15 subscription doesn't feel significant. A $100 dinner doesn't feel like a financial crisis. A $500 weekend doesn't feel outrageous. A $700 car payment may feel normal. A $3,000 vacation may feel deserved. But add enough normal expenses together, and suddenly your income isn't yours anymore. It's already spoken for. This is the first trap. The middle class doesn't usually go broke because of one giant purchase. It happens because thousands of small commitments accumulate, and commitments are different from purchases. You can decide not to buy a $200 jacket, but once you sign a 5-year car loan, that's different. Once you buy a house with a large mortgage, that's different. Once your children become accustomed to expensive activities, that's different. Once your lifestyle requires 2 incomes, that's different. The biggest expenses in your life aren't necessarily the things you buy. They're the things you agree to keep paying for. Daniel remembers when he was 25. Back then, he rented a small apartment. He drove an old Honda. His furniture wasn't impressive. He didn't care. His weekends were cheap. He cooked. He watched movies at home. He went out with friends occasionally. And somehow, he didn't feel poor. In fact, he remembers feeling freer. Then his income increased, and so did his lifestyle. At first, the changes were small: a better apartment, then a house, a newer car, then another car after they had children, then better furniture, then more expensive vacations, then more activities for the kids, then more convenience. Every step made sense, and that's important. Daniel didn't make one terrible financial decision. He made dozens of reasonable decisions that collectively created an expensive life. This is where lifestyle inflation becomes difficult to see. When your income rises, you don't necessarily feel like you're spending more. You simply stop noticing the things you used to consider luxuries. The nicer apartment becomes normal. The newer car becomes normal. Eating out becomes normal. Vacation becomes normal. Same-day delivery becomes normal. Buying something online whenever you want becomes normal. And eventually, the old version of your life starts to feel uncomfortable. That's when the trap closes. Because reducing your lifestyle isn't simply reducing spending. It feels like going backward. Imagine someone who earned $60,000 10 years ago. They learned how to live on $50,000. Then their income increased to $80,000. Then their income increased to $80,000. They upgraded their lifestyle to $65,000. Then they reached $100,000. Their lifestyle increased again. Now they spend $85,000. Then they reach $125,000. Suddenly they're spending $110,000. Income increased dramatically, but financial security didn't increase at the same speed. Why? Because every raise was immediately converted into a better lifestyle. The person earned more, but never created enough distance between income and spending. That distance is where wealth comes from. And here's where the modern middle-class lifestyle becomes particularly dangerous. Housing. Your house is probably the largest expense in your life. But housing isn't just the mortgage, it's property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, furniture, repairs, landscaping, appliances, renovations. And the larger the house, the more expensive everything around it becomes. A bigger house needs more furniture. More space requires more heating and cooling. More bathrooms mean more maintenance. A larger yard requires more work. A more expensive neighborhood can mean higher property taxes. And suddenly, what looked like a $3,000 monthly mortgage becomes a lifestyle costing thousands more. That's why the question shouldn't be, can I afford the mortgage? It should be, can I comfortably afford the entire life attached to this house? Then there's the car. One car becomes two. Two cars become newer cars. A family might have a $600 payment. Another might have $800 payment. Add insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, repairs. And suddenly transportation costs thousands of dollars every month. Again, nothing seems outrageous. But when you combine a large mortgage with two expensive vehicles, you've already committed a huge percentage of your income before buying groceries. That's the problem with fixed expenses. Once they become part of your life, they don't disappear easily. Then children enter the equation, and this is where many families feel trapped. Because parents want to give their children opportunities: sports, music, camps, tutoring, birthday parties, technology, school activities, travel, and there is nothing inherently wrong with any of these things. But every additional activity becomes another recurring expense, and parents often feel guilty saying no. They don't want their child to feel different. They don't want their children to miss opportunities, so they keep paying until one day they realize that their family schedule is full and their bank account is empty. Daniel eventually noticed another problem. Convenience had become expensive. He and his wife were both busy, so they ordered food. They paid for delivery. They bought pre-made meals. They paid for services that saved time. Again, these weren't irresponsible choices. They were buying convenience. And sometimes convenience is absolutely worth paying for. But convenience becomes expensive when it becomes the default. A $25 delivery here doesn't matter much. A $40 restaurant meal there doesn't matter much. A $12 subscription doesn't matter much. But multiply these choices by 12 months, and the number becomes very real. The middle-class lifestyle can therefore create a strange illusion. You can be surrounded by things, and still have very little financial margin. You can have a beautiful house, but little cash. You can have 2 cars, but significant debt. You can take vacations, but have no emergency fund. You can have a retirement account, but still live paycheck to paycheck. You can look financially successful while feeling financially fragile. And that's because wealth and consumption are not the same thing. Consumption is visible. Wealth often isn't. The new SUV is visible. The investment account isn't. The large house is visible. The emergency fund isn't. The expensive vacation is visible. The debt that paid for it may not be. That's why comparing your life to someone else's life is so dangerous. You see what they own. You don't see what they owe. Daniel once compared himself to a coworker. The coworker had a larger house, a newer SUV, more expensive vacations. Daniel assumed the man was doing better financially. Then one afternoon, they had a conversation. Daniel discovered the coworker had almost no emergency savings. He was carrying credit card debt, his mortgage was enormous, and his family needed both incomes just to maintain their lifestyle. Suddenly, Daniel didn't feel behind anymore. He realized something important. Looking rich and being financially secure are completely different things. So, what can you actually do? You don't need to abandon the middle class. You don't need to move into a tiny apartment. You don't need to stop traveling. You don't need to deny your children every opportunity. You don't need to live like you're still 25. Instead, you need to become intentional about what normal means for your family, because your normal doesn't have to be someone else's normal. Maybe you don't need the largest house you qualify for. Maybe you don't need 2 expensive cars. Maybe you don't need every subscription. Maybe you don't need to upgrade your phone every 2 years. Maybe you don't need to eat out 4 times a week. And maybe you don't need to turn every raise into a lifestyle upgrade. Here's a simple question that can change how you think about spending. If I couldn't increase my income for the next 5 years, would I still be comfortable with my current lifestyle? That's a powerful test. Because if your answer is no, your lifestyle may be growing faster than your financial foundation. Another question, how many of my monthly expenses would continue if my paycheck stopped tomorrow? Mortgage? Yes. Car payments? Yes. Insurance? Yes. Utilities? Yes. Debt? Yes. Subscriptions? Probably. Childcare? Possibly. The more obligations you have, the more income you need just to stay where you are. That's not financial freedom. That's financial dependency. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine earning $125,000, but building a lifestyle that only requires $80,000. You still live comfortably. You still enjoy life. But the difference is enormous. That extra margin can become investments, emergency savings, debt reduction, retirement contributions, opportunities, time, freedom. If your company lays you off, you have options. If the market falls, you don't panic. If the roof breaks, you don't need to borrow money. If an opportunity appears, you can take it. That's what financial margin does. It turns income into flexibility. The goal isn't to spend as little as possible. The goal is to spend intentionally. There's a difference. Some expenses genuinely make life better. Maybe your home is important to you. Maybe travel is important. Maybe you love your car. Maybe you want to spend money on your children's activities. That's fine. The question isn't, is this expensive? The better question is this expense worth the amount of freedom I'm giving up for it? That's the question wealthy people often understand better than everyone else. Not, how much can I afford? But, what do I want my money to accomplish? Because every dollar has a job. It can buy something today, or it can buy something tomorrow. If you spend $1,000 today, you get whatever that $1,000 provides. If you invest that $1,000, neither choice is automatically correct. But you should know what you're trading. A larger house might give your family more comfort, but it may also mean less investing. A newer car might give you reliability, but it may also mean another monthly commitment. A vacation may create incredible memories, but it also has a financial cost. The goal isn't to eliminate these things. It's to make sure your lifestyle reflects your priorities. Daniel eventually changed one rule. He stopped allowing his lifestyle to automatically rise whenever his income increased. When he received a raise, he kept part of it. When his expenses fell, he redirected the money toward investments. When they considered a major purchase, they asked whether it would create a permanent monthly obligation. That last part made the biggest difference. They became careful about recurring expenses. Because one-time spending hurts once. Recurring spending hurts every month. And when you have enough recurring expenses, your paycheck can disappear before you even receive it. That's the real problem with the modern middle-class lifestyle. It's not that people are buying too many luxury items. It's that normal has become expensive. A normal house, normal cars, normal vacations, normal childcare, normal technology, normal entertainment, normal convenience, normal expectations. Each one is manageable. Together, they can consume almost everything you earn. And once that happens, you need a higher salary just to maintain the same life. Then you get the raise, and your lifestyle grows again, and the cycle continues. So if you're in your 30s or 40s and wondering why your income keeps increasing but you still don't feel financially secure, don't automatically assume you need to earn more. First ask, has my lifestyle grown faster than my wealth? Look at your fixed expenses, look at your housing, look at your cars, look at your debt, look at your recurring subscriptions, look at your annual spending, look at how much you actually invest, and then ask yourself, if I earned exactly the same amount for the next 10 years, would I become more financially secure? If the answer is yes, you're building something. If the answer is no, you may simply be running faster on the same treadmill. The middle class doesn't need to become poor to become financially free. You don't need to give up everything you enjoy. You don't need to live an extreme minimalist lifestyle. You simply need to create a gap between what you earn and what your lifestyle requires. That gap is where your emergency fund lives. That's where your investments grow. That's where your options come from. That's where freedom begins. Because the most financially powerful person in the room isn't necessarily the person with the biggest paycheck. It may be the person who can comfortably live on much less than they earn. The person who doesn't need every raise. The person who can survive a bad year. The person whose lifestyle doesn't collapse when income temporarily disappears. Daniel still lives in his house. He still takes vacations. His children still play sports. He still eats at restaurants. From the outside, his life looks almost exactly the same. But financially, something changed. He stopped asking, how much can we afford? And started asking, how much freedom do we want to keep? That one change completely altered the way his family spent money. And perhaps that's the most important lesson. You don't become wealthy by making your normal life more expensive every time you earn more. You become wealthy by making sure your income creates something beyond your lifestyle. Assets, savings, security, options, time, freedom. So the next time you see someone with a bigger house, a newer car, or a more expensive vacation, don't assume they're ahead. You don't know what their lifestyle costs them. You don't know how much they owe. You don't know how much they save. You don't know how much freedom they have. Because the real question isn't, how much does your life look like it's worth? It's, how much of your life can you actually afford? And perhaps the greatest financial upgrade you can make isn't buying something better. It's reaching a point where your current lifestyle no longer requires every dollar you earn. Because when your income finally becomes larger than your lifestyle, it's something extraordinary happens. You stop working just to maintain your life. And you start using your money to build the life you actually want.